Israel's rapidly escalating coronavirus crisis is aggravating a religious divide there, with ultra-Orthodox leaders accusing mostly secular regime of discrimination and fostering anti-Semitism by focusing on outbreaks in highly observant communities. As the regime struggles to contain the outbreak, ultra-Orthodox Jewish rabbis, cabinet ministers, and parliament members have resisted attempts to curtail activities in ultra-Orthodox areas.
Within the Haredi community.
I have to point out that this is not the usual typical Haredi protest that you might see regularly, if I may. Because this is not the Me'asharim community, the extreme community that is protesting. This is mainstream Haredi people from an affluent, even rich area of Jerusalem, feeling that they were abandoned by the government and by our Haredi Knesset members, feeling that they are discriminated against with this lockdown on them, that we didn't see such lockdowns in Katamon and Rechavia when there was the Gymnasia story. They are feeling that they are treated unfairly, and this is why this anger is going up and up. Nobody is listening to them, and by nobody I'm referring to our Knesset members. These are people who voted for those Knesset members, and they are not getting any answer.
This includes many areas that, according to Israel's secular health ministry, have emerged as COVID-19 hotspots in recent weeks. Clashes like these can be seen across Israel in communities with ultra-Orthodox Jews. They are attacked by what they view as a secular regime that is not fond of their ways. The situation is tense as many have been injured in clashes and/or arrested. This is the second time this year the tensions have come to the surface like this.
Well, Kalev, this neighborhood of Womema is one of the neighborhoods that was declared as a restricted zone on Friday because of the high rate of coronavirus infections. And what you can see here behind me is a large barrier. That's the barrier at the entrance to the neighborhood. And you just saw that it got knocked down because kids were trying to knock down that barrier. And that's actually what happened yesterday. Yesterday, a bunch of protesters gathered in front of these barriers and tried to break through the barriers. And of course, the policemen and the law enforcement that were there had to stop that, and that led to a scuffle between the protesters and the police. And we are expecting something similar to happen here today.
The general ultra-Orthodox Jewish population is not happy about what they perceive as targeting their communities only. A new poll shows that up to 59% of Haredi or ultra-Orthodox Jews distrust the Israeli regime. The Israel Democracy Institute published a recent survey that examines the extent to which the coronavirus pandemic and the policies surrounding it has hindered the ultra-Orthodox community's trust in the Haredi political parties. But the survey backfired and showed that this community, which makes up about 12% of Israel's population, is at odds with the regime and its policies. Over 53.3% of the respondents said that their trust in the health ministry was further harmed. The situation is getting so much out of control that a Haredi minister who is very popular among Israel's ultra-Orthodox Jews just resigned, and more may follow. Housing Minister Yaakov Litzman resigned from cabinet in protest of the regime's imminent decision to impose a general lockdown during the holiday period. The ultra-Orthodox former health minister accuses the regime of failing to act earlier and deliberately picking Rosh Hashanah, that is the Jewish New Year, as the start date of closure. Litzman, the former health minister, had long threatened to resign if the lockdown plan is approved, and had also said that his United Torah Judaism party could bolt the coalition. Litzman believes that the secular Israeli regime wanted the lockdowns during the Jewish high holidays because it doesn't want people praying. This while senior ultra-Orthodox rabbi Chaim Kanievsky accused the regime of wanting to keep yeshiva or Jewish religious school scholars from their religious studies, even as secular Israelis are allowed to go to beaches and restaurants.
What is happening very recently is with the coronavirus outbreak, which is a true concern. It's a terrible situation where people are affected and many people have died. And the world is attempting to control the virus. But what is happening is that people who are supposed to officially, according to their claim, they are supposed to represent Judaism, the Jewish religion, and the Jewish people. And it happens to be that they take the other approach, as they did from its very inception, to oppress God's people and oppress the Jewish religion. They go as far as to close synagogues, to close places of worship, close any religious activities whatsoever. And this is just an addition to all opposition that so many people in the world, so many Jewish people in the world, and including in the state of Israel, are so upset with the government. But now it takes a new level where so many people wake up and are outraged. The tension just is escalating. Having people accusing Israel as anti-Semitic and Nazis is nothing new. You can find videos on the internet already for a long time. People describe them as Nazis because many Jewish people feel that the state of Israel has a deep hate towards religious Jewish people, something similar to what other enemies to the Jewish people had in previous generations. Well, the tension between the Israeli government and the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox people is going back already decades, even before the creation of the State of Israel, since believing Jews really believe that the State of Israel to begin with is a rebellion against God. The existence of the state is against God. Jews are in exile. We are forbidden to create a state of our own. All the activities that the Israeli government has perpetrated from the very beginning till the present day against their own people, against the Jewish people, against neighboring people, all of this is in total violation of Judaism. And each and every time when time passes, there's another season coming up with a new wave of anti-God activities, anti-Jewish activities that the State of Israel is involved in, which upsets righteous people, and especially Jewish people who are followers of God and the Jewish religion.
Here's what the online community said about this. Neri says, don't shed tear for Litzman. As the de facto health minister for decade, he let health sector corrode. As health minister during COVID first wave, openly flaunted guidelines and caught virus, undermined Corona Czar's differentiated city plan, and now he's upset it's come to full lockdown. According to Hamat, with up to 40% infected, a Haredi city in Israel becomes coronavirus central. Jonah says Haredi Jews are easily identified and dehumanized because they do not consistently conform to dominant society culture. Juanka says, can they be put in a jail altogether and isolated?
He's crying. state. And we come here, I think, the last 4 months, every night, we come and demonstrate that we want that he will go home.
It's fair to say that no one else in Jewish history has done so much damage to the Jewish religion and hated so much our religion than the Zionists have. Look, the Jewish religion is our life, and attacking our religious life is attacking our life, and therefore it's fairly that we call the Zionists anti-Semites, because they're attacking our religion. They're trying to uproot our religion. It's ironic that they pretend to, in the world, as the protectors of the Jews. We believe that we will be much more free to exercise our religion in under a Palestinian rule, under a Palestinian governor in a free Palestine. Now, Palestinians and Jews are suffering from the Zionist regime.
Every black person in the United States is going to stand up.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
This is our moment. This is our mission.
Joe Biden's agenda is made in China.
Here and now, I give you my word.
But when it comes to his agenda, Biden wants to keep us completely in the dark.
Americans, what they do is they scare you into thinking you're a racist.
So they could control the whole thing. And that's just like the whole two-party state we've got.
The ultra-Orthodox community holds the regime, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the newly appointed secular Corona czar Roni Gamzu, responsible for Ukraine closing its borders for visitors. This has prevented many members of the observant community from traveling to Uman, Ukraine, as part of the annual pilgrimage to the grave of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Ukrainian media reported that locals in the Ukrainian town of Uman had attacked Jewish pilgrims who had already arrived. The ultra-Orthodox community sees the action of the regime and the timing on their most important holiday and pilgrimage as targeting them. The ultra-Orthodox Jewish community is angry over the regime dictates, largely because they see newly appointed Corona czar as a secular Israeli who would like the religious to disappear. In the eyes of many Haredim, these rules are applied selectively against them. They are a put-up job, they believe. The ultra-Orthodox Jews believe that life should be ruled by the Torah and not by the consensus of the regime.
בסוף, ביום החמישי מגיע לנו שגריר ישראל. איפה היה כל הזמן? איזה בושות. נתניהו, כנראה שהתקשורת הכניסה לו חזק חזק שהעם שונא את הדתיים. אבל הוא שוכח שהדתיים חלק מהעם.
בגבול היינו 8 ימים. בתנאים תת-אנושיים, לא הומניטריים, לא סניטריים, אפילו מינימלי, לא שירותים, לא תחת כיפת השמיים בגשם שוטף קרה, נשים עם עגלות, עם תינוקות. מה שלא קיבלנו סיוע או התייחסות מינימלית במדינת ישראל, הבלרוסים, כביכול שמצטיירים במדינה, בעולם, כי מדינה דיקטטורית, נתנו לנו, מה שמדינת ישראל אפילו לא חשבה להסתכל עלינו, לכיוון שלנו ולדאוג לנו.
Yes, the authorities in Israel have basically attacked our communities from its very beginning. This is happening each and every time again. it just repeats itself every so often. This is ongoing, this is continuing, and therefore our youth grow up with this deep opposition to this Israeli government, feeling ourselves oppressed, and finding the state of Israel as the greatest danger presently to Jewish people. The main difference we have to remember is that the Jewish people are a people of religion, a people of God. This is all what makes us Jewish, and this is what we practice. Judaism is all about religion, all about the practice of religion. This movement of Zionism, the philosophy of Zionism, and later the state of Israel, is a total rebellion against God and the Jewish religion. We have to remember this difference, and this difference is just growing and growing and growing, because the state of Israel is going in that angle, in that direction, going further away from God and his religion, and then religious ultra-Orthodox Jews are just going towards the Jewish religion, and this ends up to be a very great conflict and difference. Well, this is happening already for decades, where the Israeli police is harassing our communities, and this happens time and again. What's happening recently now is regarding the coronavirus, and what our communities are demanding is that our religious needs should be at least as essential as allowing people to go to the beach, go to the restaurants, or travel on public transportation. The government does not ban any transportation. They don't require to have an individual vehicle for every individual person, because they do understand they are essential needs. Our religious obligations, our religious needs should be respected at least as any other needs to other people. Regulations should be in place, control of the virus should be in place, and every individual should comply with. And I have to be very clear that our issue with the philosophy of Zionism and our opposition to the state of Israel is not just because they oppress us. It's not just because they don't in actuality practice our religion. It goes way deeper than that. Even if the leaders of the state of Israel will be religious, the concept of fighting other nations, the concept of ending the divinely decreed exile by physical means is totally forbidden, and we do not accept that.
Social media users are still divided over the issue. Alan says, I would say this: the reason for the high rate of coronavirus among Haredim has to do with the fact that the members of this community live in close quarters. As a result, the disease spread like a fire through dry timber. Also, some of the exposure came on Jewish holidays too. Saki says, there's nothing to apologize for. You do not apologize for parties in Tel Aviv, where there is no infection. And on the other hand, the ultra-Orthodox are still almost half of all those infected in Israel, if not more. Dr. G.A. replies, mistake? This is not a mistake. This is another part of your campaign against everything that is Jewish or national.
People are desperate. People don't have work. Old people, Holocaust survivors. They have no money. They have no education. Children need to be educated. There's no program. People feel they don't have a future.
practicing the Jewish religion for thousands of years. Now, Zionism is a new movement. They have turned their back on the religion. They hate their religion. And they want to make from us, from a God-fearing Jew, they want to make from us a new type of person that worships nationalism. They want to create a society that denies the rule of God and don't follow the Torah. And that is unacceptable to us. And in summary, the entire existence of Zionism, the state of Israel, the philosophy, to uproot Judaism from the religion, to change it into nationalism, the ideology of having a state is totally forbidden for us. And therefore, we are always in a constant state of conflict with Zionism. And this happens all the time, and this is ongoing. And now, Zionists have jumped on the opportunity under the pretext of COVID-19 protection for us. They try to limit our religious activity. And what we say is that our religious activity is equally important, just like other communities are allowed to go on with their life, and we do the same in the same manner. We do take measures to protect our communities, not to spread the virus. We keep the social distancing and other measures in place, but in the same manner that other communities are allowed to practice their type of life, we are not allowed. And that is total discrimination. And this is now the issue that's going on between us and the Israeli regime.
Ultra-Orthodox Jews have been attacked in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods. This is the latest outbreak of violence between the community and armed forces. Dozens of people were arrested across Israel, and scores of people were injured, including armed forces. The ultra-Orthodox community is retaliating against police, as police attempted to violently convince worshippers. Hundreds of locals, including children, surrounded the police vehicles. The group blocked the cops by sitting down in the road and hurled rocks and other objects at the officers, including bottles, dirty diapers, and fireworks. This is not the first time that the ultra-Orthodox communities have been targeted in the lockdowns. In fact, earlier this year in April, they were also the targets of such crackdowns. That caused international outcry by Jews across the world and by Western governments. Israeli special forces were seen with weapons in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, while the members of the community were calling them Nazis and spitting at them. Here is the news making the press in Israel. Ynet News. A police officer was seen flinging a bucket at a 13-year-old ultra-Orthodox Jewish boy before arresting him during protests by the observant ultra-Orthodox community against what they call secular regime elements. In another event at the scene, a police officer was seen pushing a man while holding a baby. The cameraman can be heard in the footage shouting at police, "He's with a child! He's with a child!" Jerusalem Post. The combined pressures of working from home while also parenting children who are at times very young is decreasing productivity and increasing stress, experts warn. With schools closed due to the coronavirus pandemic, parents have been forced to function as instant teachers, mind their children, and, if they were lucky enough to keep their jobs during the unemployment surge, to keep working from home. I-24 News. The Israeli economy is facing more trouble. Now, the head of Israel's central bank, Professor Amir Yaron, called on the regime to immediately allow small businesses to reopen as fears of a deepening economic crisis continues to grow. One of the biggest problems for Israel is the fact that the budget for 2021 has not yet been approved, adding unnecessary uncertainty in the face of the crisis, he said. The Times of Israel, an alliance of small business owners, has warned they will defy a coronavirus lockdown and open, saying they can no longer stomach the financial cost of the regime's limitations. The lockdown has drastically curbed public life, shuttered the education system, along with many businesses, and banned the right to protest.